Hello, I'm Robin and welcome to Molten Modular. Today we're having a look at the Mzourack Diktaat. What is Diktaat? It's probably the funnest, finest, loveliest, enjoyable little trigger sequencer drum machine thingy jiggly bob that I have yet to come across. It is fantastic, and it is fantastic on a couple of different levels. By which I mean it has an instant, intuitive, just get on in there and start picking out patterns kind of level to it. But then it has other deeper, more esoteric and interesting bits and pieces going on behind the scenes, and it's why it's taken me quite a little while to review it, because this has been knocking around with me for a little while and I've just been kind of using it on the surface because it's good enough just to do that. It's good enough just to be able to put in a little pattern and to run with that without having to worry about pattern changing or pattern cross-fading or breaking or shredding or probability or other bits and pieces and filling and twiddling and twaddling that you can do with it. I've not had to worry because I'm just trying to get a quick beat out there in order to play with other stuff, and it just does that so brilliantly that I tend to kind of leave it at that. So I've sat down for the last few days and thought, right, now I'm going to learn this thing, going to work it out and do it properly so that I can show it to you lovely people out there, because it's just great. It's just great. Let me try to show you why. Right. So this whole thing came about because little trigger sequences. As with everything in modular could be done in all sorts of different ways. There's 1,000 different ways to do a thing. And there's lots of different ways that you can program drums. But one of the things that seem to be lacking often is just a really quick, easy way to set a few triggers going. Just so that you can throw envelopes at a bass line that's not just bang, 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 one on every note. And while you can program that within a sequencer, it always seemed to me just to be a little bit long-winded. And so a while ago I came across something called the Pink 87 or something. It was a ridiculously named module that just had a very simple function. It had one button on it. It had 8 different channels you could select, and you just tap in a rhythm. And then it repeats that rhythm and you send it out to lots of different stuff. That was a fantastic module. And it's just what I wanted, because you just want to do a kick drum. You just want to stick a kick drum into the world, maybe a snare, maybe a hi-hat. Those sorts of simple things you just want to stick out there. And you could do that channel after channel, and then I could send a pattern of envelopes into something. Now you can dial that up using Euclidean mode on Pans Pro Workout and other bits and pieces. You can put sliders up and down and create patterns that way. But just to be able to tap in a couple of things was, to me, very, very quick, instant and releasing. The next thing that came along was the Neo Trinity from Bastel, and that had a similar function within it. Now the Neo Trinity it's a little bit of it has this tendency to defeat itself through its complexity. While the layout is supposedly intuitive, I'd get lost in it very, very quickly. However, you could, within there, fire off a couple of envelopes just to do exactly what I'm talking about. Anyway, I was talking about these things. I was also lamenting the fact that I had to send the Pink 87 away to somebody else who was more deserving than me of having it. So I was bereft and no longer had my wonderful little trigger thing. And so Mzourack from Mzourack Modular, I hope I'm getting your name right enough, said, well, hey, I've got this thing called the Diktaat, and it could be the sort of thing that's doing exactly what it is that you're talking about. In fact, it's very much based on the ideas in the Neo Trinity, but bringing those out to give you better access to those drums and those pattern creating facilities without all of the other baggage of all the other stuff that Neo Trinity does. So I thought, right, okay, yeah, I'll have a go. So I got hold of one at Superbooth, thank you very much, and I've been playing with it ever since. So in this rambling, long, drawn out introduction, I'm going to show you what it's all about. But if you want the very quick synopsis, it's a 4-channel trigger sequencer. That's it. You've got 4 lovely buttons. You've got 4 trigger outputs that you can put into things. You can save patterns and you can chain patterns. You can do some interesting fills and bits and pieces and send it out to different things. It's got a special slider which does some special pattern related bits and pieces. But ultimately, it gives you the joy of being able to record directly in without any of that mussing about. So let me bring you in. We'll have a poke around and see if we can make some percussive type sounds. All right. The Diktaat then is here. Now I should point out, of course, it doesn't actually have any sounds. It's a trigger sequencer. You've got 4 lovely mechanical pads. They're not velocity sensitive or anything. At least I don't think so. Not that we would know because my sound source isn't velocity. Anyway, let's not get distracted by that. It's not MIDI. This is analog. You've got these lovely buttons which are sending triggers out of a bunch of 4 cables here into various bits and pieces. So I've got a kick on one. I've got a snare on 2, hi-hat on this. And this one I'm sending to a sequencer over here, the octone, which is driving this monomatic voice. So each time that happens, it moves on a step, and that's a way I like to sequence things. And so just using these 4 channels plugged into whatever you want, you can create a whole thing, a whole scene going on. Let me pick a pattern that I've already pre-done. I'm going to set that running. It's on the far side. It's pretty nice though. And this has all been programmed sort of in real time, on the fly. And I can play along. I can do things like mute. I can also add something called a break, which just throws in a break. I'm also doing something vaguely clever by taking an output to run it through Crust over here, just to add some extra bits and pieces for when I do that break. I can also change the speed of that break using the wonderful slider here. Then move to another pattern just by pressing a button along here. You've got 4 banks, each with 4 patterns in that you can just seamlessly shift to and from. Which is nice. I can also crossfade between 2, which is rather delicious. So if I go back to my first one, stick on the crossfade, I'm going to crossfade to the last pattern. Then I can use my fader here, and it will shift from one to the other. It's just brilliant. Right, let's try to go through the features. I'm probably not going to do this in any particular order because there's just little bits about it that you just go, oh, this is fantastic, I'm going to spend a little bit of time here, and then you move on to the next bit. But it is relatively simple. It's a little bit easy to get distracted into perhaps a little bit of complexity when you don't really need to, because the bits that you're going to be using constantly are right there on the front, easily accessible and going to be happening all the time. There's other bits that are deeper, whether you're talking about the length and range and time divisions and other bits and pieces, which are very exciting and interesting for various people. But I'm more interested in the stuff that's right on the front, and that's what gets me excited. So I'm going to try to take you through that sort of a bit of a time. Probably the best way to start is to clear a pattern, which I now, thinking about it, can't remember how to do. I imagine, right, I'm going to hit the clear button up here and then press the pattern. And then see if that worked. No, see, that didn't work. So I don't quite remember. So I'm going to hit clear, and then I'm going to hit clear and clear them all individually because I can't remember how to do the other thing. So what you have a slightly strange interface that revolves around this button here, and you've got these tasks, these possibilities, these parameters, these events, whatever it is, that are available on these buttons between the two states of this button. Yeah, it's not a beautiful interface in regards of, oh yeah, I know, I'm really into this. It's full of the potential of kind of like being in the wrong mode all the time and not doing the thing that you want. However, with a little bit of practice and your reading glasses on, you can then see what all this is about, right? So these two modes, you've got record and you've got play. In play mode, so there's no LED on, you can just play whatever it is that's going on. In record mode, it will record whatever you're playing. Like so. Now, of course, the problem is when you start off recording, you've got no reference to timing or clock or anything like that, and so it's possible that you get into a bit of a muddle. So if I clear these out, like so, which you have to do in record mode. Record, this top line here is for everything that's in record mode. The bottom line is for everything that's in play mode. So in play mode, just play. Record mode, it records. Got it. If I want to do play type performance things, I take it out of record mode and then I can add breaks and bits and pieces. If I want to add more notes, I can do that. But if I want to copy and do other bits and pieces, I do that as well. Do you see what I mean? It gets a little bit confusing. So I'm just going to clear all that again, and we'll get to what it is that I'm talking about. So I want to record a pattern. How am I going to do that if I've got no reference to the clock? Because nothing is playing at the moment. I'm using the internal clock. You can obviously clock it externally. I'm using this clock out to run some modulation elsewhere. But it has a clock in and out. It also has reset in and out, which is interesting. So you can reset it and also send a reset to something else. So with its own tempo, you can use this to control the speed of everything, but we don't really know what that is. So it has this really nice feature called fill, and all you got to do is double tap the one you'd like to fill. So probably the hi-hat. Let's go for the hi-hats, and then the whole thing is full. So I've now got that pattern written that I can then play along to in order to record more things. Yeah. Now it doesn't have to be 16ths as this is. If I go back to clear that, go back to fill, I can use the magic slider here to change sort of how many notes are within the possibility of that pattern. Do you see? So now if I double tap this one, it's giving me eighths. Yeah? It's really, really useful and nice. So I could, for instance, go to whatever that is, that one, and put in my kick. And it's there, beautifully. If I take it off fill, I can then stick my snares in. And we're away. While it's in record mode, I can continue to add, I can continue to overdub if you like. So I can stick in a couple of little extra hi-hats and they'll just appear. But if I take it out of record, I can then just add what I like on top, without it being recorded. It has a stop button or a pause button, which is more useful than you could possibly imagine, because when you're working with it and working with percussive tracks, you tend to just, it starts to do your head in after a while. You got this constant thing going around as you're adjusting or trying to find another sound or something, and you can just make it stop with the touch of the function button and one of the things down here. And that is I think a really nice little feature. So I mean, that is it. I mean, that's really it. You record your pattern, you save your pattern, you move on to the next one, chain them together, create a song, move between one, move between the other. That is the essence of the Diktaat. And yet there is also some more. So along the play side of this annoying button, you have a couple of things. You've got break, you've got shed, you've got probability, and then you've got the crossfade. So let's have a look at those. So break, I showed you earlier, it's just a ratchet, a note repeat type of function like you get on a lot of drum machines. It's very simple. Again, it's modeled, or it's controlled rather, by the slider here. So if we set the thing going, so we're in play mode, we're going to press our break button here, which, it's also the clear button, but because we're in play mode, not in record mode, it is break. So if you get those muddled up, you will accidentally clear your pattern. But never mind. So we're now in break, and according to this, it will repeat depending on where this is. just deliciously simple, very easy to put stuff in, very easy to build that up and drop that back down again. Now there's also an assign button down here that you can assign to pretty much anything, but it is by default assigned to break. So rather than trying to find it up here, which is a little bit more difficult to see because it's the sort of function you're going to use a lot, you just have it on the assign button. I can just press that and it works. The next button is shred. Now this confuses me a little bit. The idea is that you share a pattern between two different tracks, I think. So if you hold one, so I'm going to hold the snare, that solos that for me, then I'm going to add it to the synth line. So the snare has now taken some of the synth line into itself, into its own pattern, and has left a little bit behind. Something along those lines. There's some kind of comparison going on between the two. And at the moment it's favouring the snare. I'm sure I can change that. So if I hold the synth this time and then hit the snare. So now having this slide all the way across means it's pulled all of the snare pattern into itself. I think if I put that somewhere halfway, hold the snare, I can pull some of that across. So as you can see, I don't really understand shred mode. I just know that there's a sharing of patterns between the two things that you press and something associated with this. I need to look deeper into the manual to try to get my head around it, but I kind of understand it to the point of which I know that I can suck in some of the beats from this into this and I can put it back the other way, potentially, or make one do the other. It's more of an experimental area, I think, rather than actually knowing what it's supposed to be about. In fact, I would bet that the manual is deliberately being obtuse just to make people like myself look a bit foolish. But ultimately, within shred mode, you have this sharing of beats and patterns between each other in interesting and exploratory ways that are somehow governed by this fader down here. The manual is available for download if you'd like to go and find that out. Anyway, so the next one is probability, probably the easiest of the lot. Press the thing you want to do probability for, and then it's based upon, again, the position of this slider into how much probability is then put in that. In the middle is always on. That is always, on and off, off, on, and that's on, off, on. And then finally we have crossfade, which is this one here. And what you do is you're crossfading between your currently selected pattern and the one you're going to go to. And then you use the slider to go from one to the other. And it kind of interpolates, it kind of throws some stuff in. Let's go back to this first pattern and perhaps do something a little bit more interesting with it. Then let's do a crossfade to that last pattern again. much it. That really is pretty much it. You know what, I think that's probably enough. I mean, I was thinking about, spending all morning doing really deep and interesting pattern creation with this thing, but I don't think that's really necessary. I think that the beauty of this thing really just shines by itself. It's simple, it's obvious for the most part. It's just right there. It's just so right there. I can absolutely see it being a permanent resident within my case. In fact, probably I'd go as far to say 2, because 4 channels of it is perfect for a little drum kit. Your kick, snare, hi-hat, open hi-hat, or hi-hat clap, or something along those lines. So when I'm using it with a bass line, I kind of feel like I've just not quite got enough. Although, it still feels pretty damn perfect. But to have 2 means you could easily run a drum kit and a whole bunch of bass lines and melody lines and other bits and pieces, triggering other things as well, because you can just tap in a pattern. The pattern length will go much longer than I'm using it. I'm using it on a simple, I think, 16-step revolving door, which is just simple and easy. It's just gets you going and you're off. But you can develop much more intricate patterns and longer ideas within it if you so wish. It eats up that kind of thing, and you can store it and save it and then instantly move from one to the other without any bother whatsoever. It's great in every way. Like I say, the interface sometimes trips you up. Do I have this button on or off? The fact that you are using quite vastly different functions within the same button, and it's all dependent on this one being in or out, does have an element of risk to it. And that has tripped me up once or twice when I've just cleared something and I didn't really mean to. So, but it's all packed into this relatively compact space, and for the most part, your fingers on these buttons, your finger on the slider, your brakes, your ability to mute. Those are the key elements, I think, in any sort of live performance, any trying to jam with it type of module. Those are the best things that you need, and they are right there, instantly accessible all the time, and that's fantastic. I'm loving the crossfade between 2 patterns. I think that's a really nice idea. I can definitely see myself using that when I'm trying to transition from something which is relatively quiet and unfussy into something more frenetic and interesting. I'm definitely going to try running it with just voices and see how that works out, which could be interesting. So yeah, maybe I'll do a video later on of it just running some synthesizer bits and pieces, just to see how that feels. I think there's a whole collection of stuff you could throw in that, because we have so many voices in modular which are triggered and gated and enveloped differently. Some things you want to trigger envelopes, other things you want to trigger the sound itself. Yeah, other bits of triggering modulation. I mean, you can use it as a very different clocking system by sending everything very, very different patterns of clocking. You know, it's a very manual, hands-on version of the PAMS Pro, because the PAMS Pro, I have that here. This is an Uber clock module, which is fantastically useful. I'm using it all the time, but I find it I find it annoying when I'm trying to use it for patterns, because it has Euclidean patterns built in and all sorts of trigger, probability and bits and pieces. But I never feel like I'm in any control over that. I always feel like it ends up being this kind of a random groove, which I don't know whether I necessarily like or not. Whereas I like that. I like that a great deal. I just want to be able to tap that in and have that running about. And that's what this is totally brilliant at. So it's useful in every situation, whether you're running drums, whether you're running voices and bass lines, or triggering effects, or just want to do some interesting clocking with something. It's a gloriously simple, easy, hands-on, tactile, light up little drum machine. What a fabulous thing. So there we go. I hope that was useful. And in the meantime, go make some tunes.